Let's talk housing, shall we? The number of first-time buyers, apparently, that bought a house with a mortgage in 2023, get this, apparently it's the lowest number in a decade. Let me come straight to you. What do you think this tells us about the state of the property market in this country, Richard?
I think it shows that there's not enough supply. And we have a growing population. We have a population where people live longer. And so people who already have a home, you know, it's a good thing. They live longer, but they stay in their homes for a longer period of time. So homes aren't coming up as much. And that means that we have to be more aggressive about building homes. The other thing I'd say is that it also reflects a distorted employment market where jobs are disproportionately concentrated in the southeast. So that puts more demand on housing in the southeast as well. So one way that you could alleviate some of the housing problem also would be to consider, in my view, a more robust industrial strategy where you would think about relocating more jobs outside of the southeast to try and balance not just employment but housing.
So you'd make people redundant here?
You would incentivise companies and the public sector, but also I think you should incentivise the private sector through tax incentives to actually relocate some of their operations to other parts of the UK.
And where would you build? You're talking about building these new houses and supply. Where would you put these new houses?
Well, we actually, I mean, there's a lot of the country that isn't built on, and there is space to do responsible expansion of housing supply. One of the problems I think sometimes people have is that
on the green belt and stuff like that, for example?
We might have to look at the green belt in some areas. We're operating under a kind of set of strictures that were set after the Second World War when the population was very different than it is today. But also I think part of the problem is that when we do have new housing, it's often done badly, poor quality, it's not very attractive. And so I think it'd be important as well, if government was serious about this, to think about actually doing design that actually looks nice and is attractive and is the kind of home that someone would want to start a family and raise a family in.
You're not just a man of car parks, you're a man of property. Ben Habib, what do you make to it all?
Well, I wholeheartedly agree with a great deal of what you just said, Richard. And I think what you alluded to with an industrial strategy for the country was that, of course, the country isn't operating as one country. We have the South East, which is an economic engine for the United Kingdom, and we haven't levelled up the rest of the country, which successive governments have said they're going to do. There's no shortage of housing in the UK. We lack housing where people want it, which is in the South East. And if we could have a proper economic policy that genuinely incentivised the creation of sustainable jobs up north, not chucking a few million quid at the problem, plastering over the cracks and hoping the problem goes away, but actually creating, for example, Newcastle, Manchester, great universities, make them internationally great universities, not just domestically, but international. Put them right at the top of the list. Get research facilities around them. Get businesses building up.
So you want more immigration into those cities to bolster their university attendance?
No, I'm not. No, I'm just saying make them research centres of excellence, right, so businesses congregate round them the way they have around Oxford and Cambridge. Right. That's just one example. But tax breaks, critical component about getting the country levelled up, not about chucking money at things. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, which Richard didn't mention, is the massive amount of migration we've had. And, last year we had net migration of 775,000 or whatever it was. Well, that's another 300,000, 200,000 homes just there. And we're building about 150,000 new homes each year. Migration puts a huge strain on the infrastructure of this country, and we're seeing that in the housing market. And so we've got to address that. And in addition to all of that, by the way, I don't think we need to build on the green belt. There is so much brownfield development that could take place but doesn't take place because of a turgid planning system and lack of imagination from home builders. They want green fields because they can plonk their little housing estates with their 2 up, 2 down, pre-designed, prefab, soulless estates all over the country. That's what housing builders want. But actually force them into using brownfield sites. Get them to reuse redundant office buildings, which are now going begging, for example, because of lockdowns and work-from-home habits. Get that supply back in. There's so much that could be done.
Final word to you.
And I'd just say also that we have a local government system here that incentivises blocking the construction of
Absolutely houses. Right, yeah.
And for councillors who sit on planning committees and so on, the electoral pressures for them are from people who already live in those areas, and people who already live in those areas tend to be more resistant to building new housing. And so actually sometimes I think it requires central government to take a stronger hand here and to think more strategically. That's about not just about building houses for the sake of building houses, but building houses in places where you could also bring employment.
What do you make to it at home? And when we talk about levelling up, I have noticed as well a lot of cities outside of the southeast, the house prices there are starting to absolutely rocket. Is that the kind of levelling up that we want to see in this country or not?